I want to bring up now Hip Hop Congress, our leaders, and they're going to tell us a little history and tell us a little information, things that's going on with the organization right now. It's so many amazing things. If you get a chance, please go to the website and get tapped in with Hip Hop Congress. And I'm not going to say too much. I'm going to let them come on out. Hey. We got Anita. We got DeFranco. We got Rockman.
We don't really need these, but I had a special request. Could we get everybody in the auditorium to come up to the front so we can have this intimate conversation?
Show the love.
Get close.
This
We
is
family
hip-hop.
here. We family here.
Plus, it'll look better on the photos.
Right. Oh, yes. Documentation is a must.
No, that's you, bro. Come on. That is you. Yeah, hop up here. We represent worldwide. Less than that, yeah.
All right. Well, first of all, thank you for being here. This is my first time in Atlanta, and I wouldn't want to know this city any other way than being right here with y'all and learning the history from the community and the people that, you know, have lived and grown up here. So it's kind of how Hip Hop Congress has grown organically, going all the way back to 1993. There's a cool story behind how the organization came together, because it started off as an artist collective. It was an artist, rapper, producer named Rial Robinson had this idea of wanting to create basically a collective of artists that would pool their resources as opposed to compete for resources. He was from Southern California in a city called Oxnard. And he kind of brought this idea around as he was, talking to different artists. And in 1997, he met an artist from San Jose, California, which is Northern California, the Bay Area. And his name was Shamako Noble. And he was a rapper. Shamako, yes, for those who know. He was an MC, battle rapper, and organizer, community organizer. So he brought this sort of community organizing expertise to this idea of Hip Hop Congress, and him and Rial created this, the first two chapters of Hip Hop Congress that were solely artist members, one in Northern California and one in Southern California. And they were doing their thing for a few years. And then around 2000, they saw a student organization on the campus of USC, University of Southern California, also calling itself Hip Hop Congress. And so, of course, they reach out. This is right, when internet was starting to jump off. So they reach out and they say, yo, we already got this collective called Hip Hop Congress. You can't use that name. But what are y'all doing? And the student organization was started by two students at USC, two Jewish guys in the Jewish fraternity, Jordan Bromley and Ron Gubitz. And they were, not artists, but they were fans of the culture. And they wanted to create a bridge between the campus life and the community culture, and using hip hop to be that bridge. And so they were like, we bring artists to the campus to bring the crowd of students out, but then we also bring community organizations to the campus so information can get out to the crowd, and we're using hip hop as the vehicle to bring people together for social change. And so their vision of what Hip Hop Congress was, connecting with the artist vision of what Hip Hop Congress originally was, it just made sense for them to, instead of compete for the name, come together. And so those four founders created the nonprofit. So you had Jordan changed his major, went into entertainment law, figured out how to make Hip Hop Congress into a 501c3. And that allowed us to start spreading the mission. We had a handbook that basically was available for anybody that wanted to organize using hip hop culture and have the 501c3 status to support going after funding and things like that. And that idea just kind of went viral around 2001. People started found on the website, like, oh, you got a handbook, and it was very, very grassroots. Personally, I found Hip Hop Congress as a freshman on full scholarship at USC, and I was looking for just my tribe in the campus, and I seen this little community table. Two guys said Hip Hop Congress. I'm like, oh, it's hip hop. So what's this about? They ended up graduating. They were both seniors that year when I was a freshman. They graduated, and me being a rhymer from the Bay Area and just being passionate about the culture, feeling like, wow, I finally am around people that are my tribe. They're like, you're running the chapter now, and so they just kind of threw it in my hands, and so I started organizing the campus, finding the people that was like-minded, and we ran the chapter. But until I graduated. But that next year, Ron Gubitz went to go study his master's degree in Indiana, and so he started a chapter out there, and he's an educator. So basically, the three aspects of Hip Hop Congress are art, creativity, education, and social justice. And those, it's like a trifecta. What we found over the years is that when you combine people that are passionate about those three areas, there's something greater that emerges as far as what we should be doing strategically as people, because you can't have one without those other two aspects and really have it be as effective as it could be. They all feed each other. And so, long story short, in the early 2000s, this idea of Hip Hop Congress went viral thanks to social media and all of that, and ended up having, at one point at the peak, 70 chapters. And these were not like organized from any sort of central body. This was straight up grassroots, just people like, I want to be down, I want to start Hip Hop Congress. And one thing we did was we started hosting these national conferences in 2002, and we had chapters that were organizing host a conference, a different chapter every year in the summer. And so we were, the first one was in San Jose at San Jose State University. Then we went, USC was the second one. And then we went to St. Louis. St. Louis was when we had our education initiative, was the theme of that conference. We brought in folks like Martha Diaz, who spoke to us as a keynote, and really, shout out. And we'll talk more about her because we got something to introduce. This has been a long time coming, but that education conference, that third conference, sparked a lot of us who were in attendance, who were artists, young artists, to really start to see ourselves not just as entertainers, but as cultural workers, as educators. And so we were able to go back into our communities and start writing our curriculum, just writing curriculum off of being a creative, right? And some of us, like myself and Shamako, we teamed up and created in California the first standards-based curriculum for teaching rap and MCing that covered everything from songwriting and rhyming to freestyling to recording and performing. And we brought these kids at these charter schools that were popping up and pretty much started revolutionizing people's approach to education and what they saw it was possible using hip hop culture and integrating it in an authentic way. The kids, obviously, it was the most popular class. They want to bring it back every time. And so this was early 2000s, and in the Bay Area, there's a lot of culture of artists, doing educational work, going into schools. So we built a network of people that are pretty much like, kind of at the top of their field today, because they've been just doing it the longest, right? So folks like Dr. Elliot Gann from Today's Future Sound, just a host of people. But so that was St. Louis. That was year 3. Then we were in Chicago. We went to, I'm trying to get the order right, Athens was after that? Oh, Boulder, then Athens. Chicago was 4th. I know that. But yeah, it gets a little foggy. But yeah, but anyways, we was in Athens, Ohio. Anita will talk about that. She ran into that. We went to Boulder. We went to Biloxi, Mississippi. We were in Seattle, and then our last one was in Detroit, and that was in 2010. To keep it real, at that point, things was just, it was just so grassroots. We weren't a top-down organization. We were very bottom-up. Things went down. We ended up losing our 501c3 at one point, just out of IRS kind of, they changed the laws and stuff, and, we'd be doing stuff to throw obstacles our way, but that kind of crippled our ability to throw conferences after 2010. So we kind of went into an underground type of or dormant state where we still had chapters that were running on their own locally, but we weren't doing these national conferences. At the time, they were called national conferences. Now they're international conferences. But long story short, we were able to hold our first reunion in 2023, which was like 13 years since we had really come together. As we got our 501c3 back, obviously, in like 2015, 2016. But it was a building back process. But now we had our reunion in 2023 in San Francisco, and then did our first conference, our 10th conference in San Francisco last year. And y'all are now hosting the 11th conference of Hip Hop Congress here in Atlanta. And so what I just want to say is we became, in a very short amount of time, the second largest hip hop organization after the Zulu Nation, which was the original. But we were a 501c3 that was very connected to educational institutions. And so that's something that's really important for everybody to know, is that we have that maneuverability into our educational institutions that we want to take full advantage of wherever there's Hip Hop Congress, and connect it to the resources in the community. But that's just a little brief thing. I think I took up most of the time. I'll let Anita tell her story. She's been in the organization the next longest.
I know, right? It really is. I don't know. Time check, anybody? Is it? She said 23 minutes. I don't know. 5, okay. So we got a little time. I'll be quick. So hello, my name is Anita T. I am from Cleveland, Ohio. I joined Hip Hop Congress in the great year of 2004. So a long time ago. I found Hip Hop Congress when I was looking to leave my university. I attended Ohio University in Athens, Ohio, and I always cry. I credit Hip Hop Congress for my education, because I was going to leave college. Like, I went to a PWI. They were writing N-word on my door every day, like people coming and being violent towards me every day. It was very rough. It was very, very rough. So, one of my friends, Maya, still one of my great friends to this day, and she was like, I really think you would enjoy a meeting with this group I go to every Wednesday. And I was like, okay, I'm not doing anything. Let me see what you're talking about. I went there, and it was a group I was used to, meaning multicultural. I'm from Cleveland. Cleveland's a very multicultural city. So I'm going into the room, and I'm like, okay, it's going to be another room full of, just like my classes. Everybody's white. It's, this is what I'm expecting. And I walk in, and I see Tito, RIP. He was one of the founders of my chapter, and he was a little white, unassuming white guy from Canton, Ohio. We had Dietrich, who he's actually from Texas, but yeah, there were 4 different founders. So Tito, Dietrich, why am I blanking right now? Stuart Flom, who also became an entertainment lawyer because of Jordan Bromley. And then, I know, right? And then there was Maurice Williams. So yeah, I was in the meeting, and I was just like, oh my gosh, like, this is a multicultural group. They're welcoming. We're talking about hip hop. We're talking about progressing society. Nobody's being aggressive here. I'm just like, why isn't this my whole campus? Why is this not? I'm like, if I had this in every class, I would stay in school all the time. Like, I wouldn't feel this way, right? And I left that meeting feeling as though like I finally, the shield I had up was finally defending. Like, I had people with me to protect me. And that was so crucial. So then I want to make sure, as the years went on, I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to make sure that other people feel this way. Because if that's how I felt, I can only imagine how many other people feel this way. And I ended up growing. So for me, with my chapter, I went from just a chapter member to, I think I tried to be the secretary for like 2 weeks. It did not work out. I'm not a secretary, guys. So, but yeah, like I ended up being the, I became the VP. I ran that next year, and our president at the time, he disappeared. Like we had a 3-on-3 battle set up, and he disappeared, and we're just like, what are we gonna do? And I had the opportunity to take the reins, like, of the chapter, and from there, that's actually where we met. Was that we ended up going to the national conference in Boulder, and that was '05, and we went to Boulder. I was like, this is everything, and when we met, just like this short weekend, maybe a day. I don't even think we took 3 days. It was like a day. And that whole day we were together, and I think I pleaded my case, like having an Athens, Ohio next year, because Ohio needs this. And Athens, Ohio is a very remote, small place. It is not easy to get to. Easier now, but it's still not easy to get to. And I got about 350 people there that following year. And from there, it grew. We got Cincinnati chapter. We had 3 different, I didn't even know this till recently, like 3 different hip hop groups formed from that conference. Detroit, so Detroit's right up the road. We used to have regional conferences there. So we grew, and we kept growing. And along with that, I grew. And Hip Hop Congress allowed for me to, where I could not do this in my day-to-day life because, real work, right? I was able to put my skill set forward and actually use it in my nonprofit life. So using all of my skills in leadership to bring chapters to Cleveland, bringing them to Detroit, bringing them to Ann Arbor. I don't know if y'all are familiar with Detroit is Different. That's ran by Kari Frazier. So if you get a chance, check him out. He started out of Detroit. Like that was another chapter because we went up to Detroit, and that's coming through Ohio. So yeah, we just through the years, like, and I stuck with Hip Hop Congress. That time where he was talking about we left and we didn't have 501c3, I still kept going because that's the work and that's what you do. And then when your heart is called to do that, you do what your heart is called to do. So I continued to keep going, and I think in 2015 you hit me up and was like, Nita, what you doing? Working. Working. What are you doing? He's like, how about, I'm trying to put everything back together, and how would you feel about, coming back in as regional? And at that time I'd been operating as the Ohio State Director for Hip Hop Congress. And that's when we had state directors before we stopped doing that. No, I was a state director before you came back. Yeah, I was the state director for Ohio. Because Mock had called me. Yeah, Mock had called me and was like, yeah, we're going to put you as the point person for Ohio. And I was like, okay, cool. And that ended up doing a lot of work with Poor People's Campaign in Cleveland and the United, United Against Poverty in Cleveland. Like he connected me with a lot of different nonprofits in the area, allowing us to build and go forward. But yeah, so through that, Hip Hop Congress kind of just helped me navigate my own personal education as far as social justice, my social justice work, what it means to actually be an educated Black woman in this country, and how to actually utilize that going forward into the world that we all present ourselves in, right? So that's pretty much it. And then, yeah, like I just became an executive director last year. So yeah. So thank you.
Mine will be a lot shorter because these two are 20 plus years. I'm about 5 years. So I'm from LA. My name is DeFranco. I was introduced to Hip Hop Congress by the previous Southern California regional director. His real name was Gerald Amaya, and he was known as Darkside 90442. He was from Northeast LA area. He was a super dope human, a super dope MC. He was a teacher. He taught at Marquez High School. And so I met him about 15 years ago. We had been good friends for a long time. We did a lot of songs together in LA underground hip hop scene. But he introduced me to Hip Hop Congress, and I never really got into it with him until his untimely passing just about 5 years ago. And when he passed, I actually met Rahman at his going home services, and so Rahman, kind of was like, hey, check out our, clubhouse meetings, and we do that every Saturdays. If you guys don't know, we'll let you know before the end of this weekend. We do clubhouse meetings every Saturdays, 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And so I started, yeah. I said Pacific. Okay, all right. So 3 p.m. for y'all time, 3 to 5 y'all time. But anyway, so I started attending those meetings and stayed pretty consistent because as those meetings progressed, I felt more comfortable and at home with a family, that became a family of mine in Hip Hop Congress. And just like Rahman said, like Anita said, you kind of like find your tribe, you know what I mean? There's no judgment. Don't matter where you from or, who you are. If you, down with hip hop and you down with a positive cause, and then, you're part of that family. So I felt that love right away, and, I stayed consistent with those meetings. And Rahman had recognized or acknowledged the fact that with Mr. Amaya's passing, and there was a hole with the Southern California regional position, so he offered me that position. I took that position, and we've kind of progressed from there, from directors and regional directors to an executive committee, which us three are members of, with Rahman being the director. And so yeah, I mean, from the Bay to LA to the A to South A, Africa that is, what I'm saying? To Cleveland and Dallas, you know what I'm saying? We national, we international, we international, multicultural, like, no borders, no boundaries, no limits, no gimmicks. We just are who we are, and we appreciate y'all being here. I'm gonna leave mine there and pass it on to my brother Emil X, YX.
One thing before he takes the mic. So what Franco just described is pretty encapsulated in the original motto of Hip Hop Congress, which is, you don't join us, we join you.
Hey everybody. So yeah, I'm from Cape Town, South Africa, and I'm Emil. And I was unfortunate to be stuck out in the US because of COVID, and was searching. I'm very unfortunate. And my wife is and my kids we were in the Bay Area, and so I was unable to travel back and forth. I needed to find family, exactly what they're speaking about, especially with the great orange one in charge then as well. It felt and feels very like apartheid South Africa, I must tell you. It really does. Anyway, so I was able to connect with them. And I, being someone from outside of the US, I see the power of hip hop to really change not just America, but the world. And in the rest of the world, it actually is and has changed political regimes in the country. And so it's really extremely powerful. And being here, I see the need for it to again go into the foundations, to be in the schools and to mobilize the masses of the people the way it does elsewhere. Like we in 14 schools in South Africa, every day teaching using hip hop culture and golf, because you gotta mess up the white folk on the golf course. Like, what the fuck are these people? But yeah, so it's for me, having this connection is extremely important for hip hop, the other face of hip hop. Both within academia, to also, because that's where they actually change our young people's minds. That's where they actually use white supremacy to indoctrinate our kids. So if we're not there, we can't change that, and bring about what we want to see happen for our own children in our own school, So, and then being in connection with these guys, I like the books and the ways of actually bringing about that change exist that can be shared, and it's the intellectual property of the people that they're trying to keep out of the schools and universities right now. So it's a very powerful, potentially a very powerful global power if we're able to to mobilize it, you know, and so that's where I feel the need. I was involved with Zulu Nation back in the day as well. And again, that organization has huge amount of power because able to have shared videos and, you know, letters. I don't know if you remember those. You know, we had to write to people. And that's how a lot of information was shared back in the days. And very important information. In South Africa, I end off with this by saying that if it wasn't for me writing, you know, Word Up to Word Up magazine, I would not know the greatness of my African past. Like it is people that from the US that sent me photocopies of books that I couldn't believe. Before that I hated reading because it was just about them. And when they sent me that I was like, damn, this is the power that is missing. You know, and it's funny that like those same books now are banned here in the US. So yeah, we have a huge responsibility as a hip hop collective. Yeah. I'll leave it at that. Yeah. Thanks.
So yeah, if there's any questions that you have for us as far as anything that we just said, we got how many? What was that? Oh, it's 6:01. Well, you don't got time for questions then. We got to get, but please, yeah. No, she was just saying it was 6:01. She was giving us the time. She was saying, wrap it up. Well, I believe, Manny, we got coming up to the stage. So
Let's bring Manny Faces on the stage.
Keep it moving, y'all.
Thank you, everyone. If you see us, please stop us, ask us questions. We're open books.
Yeah, if I assume y'all know why I'm here. I'm so aligned. Well, we're all aligned. I think a lot of us this is somewhat preaching to the choir that we're all here, but it's also that affirmation and validation and knowing that you're not alone doing these kind of things. It's so valuable. Emil hinted to it. I wrote a book called Hip Hop Can Save America, and he hinted to yes, the world. I also own hiphopcansavetheworld.com. So that's next. Let me do this one first. And so this book is out now. It came out like about a month and a half ago, and it's I'm going to explain what it is and what it's about, and I hope that you'll find some value in it. It's a book talk, so I'm going to center the book, but as you'll quickly I think realize, this book is not center me. Okay, so if y'all indulge me for a moment, I'd like to. Well, first of all, let me read you what the description on the back of the book, so you understand what I did. It says, this book examines how hip-hop, far beyond its musical aspects, represents a powerful force for social, economic, and cultural transformation in America. So we're already, that's us, right? That's what we're here to talk about, right? It demonstrates how hip-hop's innovative spirit and collective mindset are already improving fields like education, healthcare, technology, and community building. The author, it's me, challenges mainstream media's narrow portrayal of hip-hop culture and argues that its methodologies and philosophies, born from marginalized communities' resilience and creativity, offers solutions to some of America's most pressing problems, including economic inequality, political dysfunction, and racial division. By documenting successful applications of hip-hop principles across various sectors and advocating for broader recognition of hip-hop's transformative potential, the book presents a compelling case for embracing this cultural movement as a catalyst for positive societal change. Sounds pretty good to me. This isn't probably a surprise to most of us. Like, this sounds familiar. If you're here, you probably know this stuff already. But I think it's valuable to hear also. Just the humblest of humble brags. I indeed endorse this crucial project. There is no doubt these visionary voices are badly needed in our grim times. And that's by Dr. Cornel West. So, just saying. I'm just going to read an excerpt from the introduction. Now, it'll say this here, but to give you an idea of actually this book is not just me writing a bunch of my opinions, although if you know me, I've been doing podcasts called Hip Hop Can Save America for, 7-8 years, and I've been writing about hip hop for a decade and a half before that, so I have plenty to say on the topic. And so there is a bunch of sort of my philosophies or my analysis of the collective philosophies that I've gleaned from interviewing folks doing this work. Some of you in this room, I don't know if you've been on the show, you're overdue, I know, and I'm just one guy, but we're going to make all that work. That being said, there is no shortage of amazing people that I've interviewed that are in this book. The book is mainly a bunch of foundational interviews from the interviews that I've done over the years, again, with some commentary and edification. So let me just read this for y'all. This is the introduction, this is how the book starts. I say, I suppose with such an audacious book title, it might make sense to start by providing some context. Hip Hop Can Save America is a podcast series that I launched in 2018, emerging as the latest in a series of journalistic projects that I had personally developed, joining several others in which I was deeply involved. This project was intensely personal, my newest creation, entirely my own. I conceived it, developed it, booked the guests, conducted the interviews, wrote the intros, edited the audio, produced the theme song, created the artwork, and everything. It's my logo. While I openly acknowledge my tendency to pontificate endlessly about hip-hop's transformative power, this podcast was not about me. Its core mission was to eliminate the groundbreaking work of interdisciplinary innovators who masterfully incorporated hip-hop music and culture into traditionally unrelated fields. These boundary-crossing practitioners, some of them are you, engineered remarkable fusions of knowledge production, creating hybridized approaches that challenge conventional wisdom. Through their work, they demonstrate how hip-hop's principles can catalyze tangible improvements in lives, livelihoods, and communities, effectively translating cultural wisdom into practical solutions that resonate far beyond traditional disciplinary confines. We examine fundamental areas of society, education, education, health and wellness, science and technology, politics and social justice, business and entrepreneurship, the fine arts, and more. What emerged through this exploration was remarkable. The purposeful, thoughtful integration of hip-hop into these legacy fields was creating unprecedented opportunities for people to excel and thrive. Even more significantly, this transformative work remained largely unknown to the broader public. I know when you talk about the work you do, you talk to somebody, and they're like, what? Hip-hop does what? I thought it was just this or that, right? Unknown to the larger public. To some readers, this entire premise might seem extraordinarily foreign, and while I believe the chapters to follow will tell the story as clearly as possible, I should establish several fundamental concepts that will help guide our exploration of this book's ultimate purpose: to inspire educators, students, community leaders, parents, change makers, business people, well-meaning politicians, if there are any, activists, and any member of the general citizenry seeking innovative approaches to address, alleviate, and potentially eliminate our most pressing societal challenges. That's the goal of the book. That's what I want people to get from this. While my journey has evolved to encompass substantial independent scholarship, I approach these topics not like a traditional academic. It is on an academic press, by the way, so kind of you can be like done in colleges, but I'm not a PhD anything. I'm a PhD me. All right, look. I'm not a traditional academic, but as a devoted student and chronicler of hip-hop's transformative power. The theories and background I present might appear revolutionary to some, but to others merely introductory. And that's precisely where my role as an advocate journalist finds its purpose. Rather than providing the most rigorous academic analysis, I aim to serve as a bridge, introducing ideas that many may recognize anecdotally, and where possible, connecting them to traditional canonical frameworks. In this endeavor, I've been privileged to collaborate with brilliant scholars and thought leaders who lend their expertise throughout this book, enriching those connections with their deep insights, gleaned from their on-the-ground experience. But this is hip-hop we're discussing, a cultural force that often defies conventional academic categorization. Not everything here gets tied up neatly with a perfect academic bow, nor should it. Some scholarly leniencies will be required. That was just me covering myself if I didn't cite somebody. I don't know how to do all this. I said, we're going to let some of this go, as I frequently lead with a journalist's passionate pursuit of truth rather than the measured restraint typically expected of academic researchers. This approach allows us to explore these innovations with both the rigor they deserve and the authentic energy that hip-hop demands. So overall, my hope is that these preliminary insights will inspire deeper exploration. The field of hip-hop studies isn't theoretical or brand new. It's an established field of inquiry. How long ago you say you were doing it, right? Years and years and years ago. And it goes back farther than that. We'll talk about where some of it started from. Similarly, the capacity of hip-hop to positively influence academia, healthcare, technology, commerce, and human interaction has been demonstrated repeatedly to varying degrees. There are plenty of receipts. I've worked diligently to ensure that each focus area within this group can be supported by substantial literature, enabling readers to pursue deeper understanding of their particular interests. You like something, there's going to be more you can find out about it. You can go down that rabbit hole. But as previously noted, a major impediment to looking toward these examples for inspiration is that many remain unaware that this type of work even exists in the first place. I'm kind of not writing it for y'all. I'm writing it for the other people that need to know about y'all and about what we're doing. Although we can get gems no matter who we are. So we should start here by providing some of the background that readers should consider as they approach this book and its larger America-saving thesis. Again, to some, this may be preaching to the choir. To others, these concepts might be epiphanies. The first one is the big one. Hip-hop is a culture of innovation. And the subtitle of the book is Inspiration for the Nation from a Culture of Innovation. Now, the Merriam-Webster, we good so far? You're with me? I'm holding your attention? All right, thank you. Appreciate it. I'm not here to lecture, but you know, I got to read a little bit from the book. It's a book talk. The Merriam-Webster dictionary defines culture as the customary beliefs, social forms, and material traits of a racial, religious, or social group. It further adds that culture represents the set of values, conventions, or social practices associated with a particular field, activity, or societal characteristic. We got to prove to some people that hip-hop is a culture. Like, they don't know this. To many, hip-hop is simply just a genre of music, often referred to as simply rap. While hip-hop, the genre, is indeed synonymous with rap music is but one aspect of hip-hop, the culture, and further definitions. Now, this sentiment is echoed by institutions of higher education who also denote hip-hop as a culture and have incorporated hip-hop coursework, fellowships, and archives into their hallowed halls. Institutions including Yale and Harvard and Cornell and Howard and the Ohio State University, Georgia State University, the University of Wisconsin, and many more. Loyola University in New Orleans offers a Bachelor of Science in Hip Hop and R&B now. The Peabody Conservatory at Johns Hopkins University offers a Bachelor of Music in Hip Hop. Y'all might know this, some people may not. It's in more places than we think sometimes. Long-standing cultural institutions recognize hip hop's significance as well. The Smithsonian Institution, the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts before this guy got reelected, Carnegie Hall, and the American Museum of Natural History. This understanding is global, evidenced by the existence of venues like La Place, the Culture Center in Paris, initiatives like the Heal the Hood Project, oh shoot, we got a shout out, in South Africa, and Die Urbane, which is a German political party based on hip-hop values. I don't know if it still exists, but it did. Perhaps most importantly, hip-hop is considered a culture by its cultural participants, right? The very essence of hip-hop's cultural legitimacy manifests in the profound sense of belonging expressed by those who claim it as their own philosophical, spiritual, or social identity, regardless of their connection to any form of the artistic output. In the same way, you don't have to be a ceremonial dancer to be a part of indigenous culture or a master chef to claim Italian heritage. Hip-hop's cultural authenticity is validated through the lived experiences and conscious identification of its adherents. What we witness in hip-hop is the embodiment of what anthropologists will call cultural self-determination, where the act of claiming cultural membership, understanding its values, and living within its philosophical framework constitutes legitimate participation. This truth resonates deeply with my own journey of cultural understanding, as well as countless other individuals who embody hip-hop's core principles in their daily lives. We don't just do hip-hop, we are hip-hop. This brings to mind what Dr. Toby Jenkins had called a hip-hop mindset, a uniquely radical lens through which one sees the world, consistently challenging established realities while embracing the art of resourceful reinvention. Drawing from the culture's oft-lauded principle of making something from nothing, those who internalize hip-hop's worldview often develop an extraordinary capacity to perceive unconventional solutions that others might overlook. This perspective, born from the culture's legacy, which produced turntables as instruments, public parks as concert halls, and street corners as universities, cultivates a distinctive problem-solving methodology that thrives on creative recontextualization. So you apply that to fields ranging from education to healthcare to technology to entrepreneurship. This hip-hop-informed mindset manifests as a powerful tool for innovative thought. The culture's emphasis on remixing doesn't just suggest alternative solutions, it fundamentally restructures how problems themselves are perceived and approached. Now, I'm almost done with the section I want to read. We're going to explore several, I'm reading from it. We're going to explore several examples of what this looks like in practice throughout this book across several disciplines. Most will focus on direct interdisciplinary integrations of hip-hop music and culture and spirit into fields and institutions that have often been quite resistant to change or modernization. We'll hear directly from practitioners who have incorporated hip-hop into their work, their testimonies documenting how these innovations have directly impacted and improved lives, particularly, but not exclusively, the lives of young people from communities that have been historically underserved, under-resourced, and underloved by the proverbial powers that be. All of which leads to the second big concept that I would ask you to keep in mind as you allow me to lead you on this journey, one which closely mirrors the one I myself took to arrive at this place of optimism and advocacy. Hip-hop really can save America. And it goes on, and it's a good introduction, and you should read it when you buy the book. Let me switch. So, in this book, like I said, I interviewed a bunch of people, and there's, again, folks in this room. There's folks all over. I interviewed over, 125 now people for the podcast or some other shows that I've done that are all doing this kind of work. I started years and years ago. I was a DJ. I was a producer. I had a home studio. I'm from New York. You tell I talk fast. I'm one of the ones that did what New Yorkers do, and I moved here to Atlanta about 4 or 5, and I'm not going to complain about the traffic. I know it's our fault. Okay? I respect. Been here about 4 years, and just like I did, in New York City for a number of years, I just poked my nose around and tried to, get the lay of the land respectfully to find out who's doing what and what's happening out here. It's really, like I said, an honor to be here speaking in front of Atlanteans and Hip Hop Congress. I've talked to them over the years as well. It's sort of my job now to know who's doing all this work everywhere, right? A lot of times people are operating their silos, and they don't necessarily know who else is doing this work, which is why get-togethers like this is so important, right? Because sometimes we come in this, we might think we're the only ones. Some people might come here, and I don't know if they're here today or tomorrow, who don't even know any of this is a thing, right? So they're being exposed to this for the first time. So it's brilliant that we have these gatherings. The book is sort of that kind of thing, too, because I wanted to introduce to anyone who isn't familiar with all of the brilliant people that I've talked to or come across or seen in action, that this work is being done. So I did a podcast about it for a long time, since 2018, interviewing these folks, but realized that, well, if a podcast goes away, if I stop paying the podcast hosting bill, then the podcast goes away. And I wanted to make sure that these folks were documented, their words were, sort of canonized, they last forever. And so decided to put the book together, and I picked a bunch of folks, which is a hard thing to do, because they're all brilliant, and like I said, there's a bunch folks I haven't gotten to yet, who are doing this work. So just to give an idea, and again, this does, even though I'm preaching to a choir about the work, these are folks that have been doing this work. So you might be new to doing this work, or you may be an OG doing this work, or this kind of work, with this blend of art and social justice and, where we all sit, trying to make the world a better place through the music and culture that we love. These people have been doing the work, and they have great, I picked them on purpose, but they have great stories, they have great examples, great anecdotes, failures, right? Things that they've done that, maybe didn't work out so great. So even for us doing this work, I think it's super valuable that we pay attention. That's not just me trying to get you to buy the book. There are folks like Dr. Bettina Love. I start the book with Dr. Bettina Love. Many of you are familiar with Dr. Bettina Love. She's not from Atlanta. She's from Rochester, New York, but she taught in Atlanta for a long time, taught elementary school, was one of the first people I came across when I was kind of getting into this world, find out who's doing this work. Originally, I had been in New York, and I started an online magazine called Birthplace Magazine. I covered birthplace of hip hop, New York City, and surrounding areas. At the time, down here in Atlanta, people, I was telling hip hop was dead in New York. Hip hop dead in New York, and it kind of, a lot of it was. Come on now, when Houston was popping, when Atlanta was popping, this is what I didn't say. I agreed with it. I'm saying this is what was said. So I was up there, and I started the magazine in 2008, called Birthplace Magazine, because I was sticking my nose around New York City, and I was like, they're out of their mind. There's so much great stuff happening here. So I cover the independent scene, the long-running institutions, like how y'all have soul foods. You know, we have Freestyle Mondays, and how, you know, how y'all have things down here. We had End of the Week, which was going on at that time for 15 years. There's a weekly showcase. We had Brown Bag All-Stars doing weekly showcases. We had the lineup doing weekly showcases. Now, these weren't superstars and all that, but it was just a blossoming, just bubbling, you know, independent scene in New York City. One of them was Freestyle Mondays. Now, Freestyle Mondays, which is now celebrating its 24-year anniversary, they don't do it regularly anymore, but they're still doing anniversaries, because why not? Was a freestyle battle. There were 8 contestants, 4 on each side, you know, one verse, right? And it was, there was a wheel, right? And you'd spin the wheel, and the wheel had like, it was like a game show, right? So it was like science, or, you know, like categories, right? Like Jeopardy, right? Science, or music, or food chain, right? You spin the wheel, and shouts to Ill Spoken was the host, and, you know, he'd flip a coin, you go first, all right, cool. The wheel would land, it'd be like food group. It'd be like, all right, you're plankton, you're a shark, go. Freestyle off the top of the head, and you had to battle the other cat or catess with that. Live band, rocking. I'm talking about some of the best musicians in New York City, no cap at all. Brilliant musicians. And they would do it. I'm the shark, I'm swimming in the ocean, I come through, I put lotion, whatever. I'm not a contestant. The point is, I'm telling you to this day, I mentioned in the book, it's like one of the, like, forget hip hop, like it's one of the best entertainment, like, things, like, humankind has ever invented. It's so fun, it's funny, the crowd has to judge, like, Apollo, you're like, yeah, you know, who wins? Like, it's so fun. They do rounds, and we have a DJ, or like there was a featured artist in the middle, then go back to the next rounds, and then, you know, eventually they would take it out, and it was just like the band would rock, people would freestyle, jump, they do a cypher. Greatest entertainment thing ever. But what I started realizing when I talked to some of the people who do this, not only are they brilliant freestylers, because you have to have that skill, but they were just brilliant. You have to know what a plankton is. You have to know what all these things are. You have to go up there with, you don't know, they'll literally be like, you know, Ronald Reagan, Mikhail Gorbachev, go. And you have to know who these people are, otherwise you'll get through it. But the sharper you are, the more information you have. And so I start realizing that not only are these, you know, hip hop, they could rap, they could freestyle, but they're really smart. So I talked to one of them, and I said, hey, man, like, you're really smart. He's like, yeah, you know. So what do you do when you're not doing this? He's like, well, I'm a teacher. Oh, okay, well, that makes sense. I teach high school. That makes sense. Okay, cool. You ever, like, you ever bring hip-hop, and, like, you hip-hop, you using, you know, my school's kind of funny like that, but on the weekends, I go to Rikers Island, I do this program with these young men who are incarcerated, and we do poetry and rap workshops about getting their self-esteem up and getting their, and I'm like, oh, that's dope. That's brilliant. I didn't know that. Like, and I'm covering New York City hip hop, and I don't know that this like little program exists. Then I talked to this guy who used to be known as Rabbi Darkside. His name is Sam Sellers, and he tells me about, I did this program where I worked with the New York City School District. This was, I don't know, many years ago, for a program called Fresh Prep. So tell me about Fresh Prep. He goes, well, you know, we have these state standardized tests, the Regents exams. You're from New York, you know the Regents exams. And you have to take the Regents exams every year, and these kids are failing. They're doing terrible. Social studies, they're failing, right? So what they did was they brought us in as teaching artists, as rappers that, you know, kind of had an educational bent to it. And we worked with the kids, and we did the curriculum, and we put it into rap forms, and they started listening to the songs, and they made the content into the song, and they memorized. And now 80% of the kids who failed, 80%, who had failed, some of them multiple times, went ahead and passed, just like that, after like a couple of weeks of this. I'm like, you lying, that's not true. And they're like, yeah. I'm like, this is wonderful. Now, you start to click, because if I tell you a hip-hop head this, they're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. You know, because I knew, you know, I do a whole tech keynote about the tech industry and how much it can benefit from talking to people like this, that are in the book, and, you know, from a technology point of view. And of course, it's such a segregated and, you know, not very diverse field, and how all this genius and ingenuity that y'all have, that they have, that we have, are being ignored because they don't know any of this stuff exists. So I do a whole keynote talk about it, and part of it is like I say, hey, listen, I grew up in a black school district on Long Island, right outside of New York City. We weren't in the sticks. We were right there. We had, you know, middle class. There was a lot of people there, smart people, families from all over. The diaspora was there with me. We were all chilling, and My dad was a sociologist, grew up in Newark, New Jersey, so he was kind of woke. He was, studying sociology of urban studies, they called it, sociology of minorities. So I knew what like gentrification meant when I was 8. Like I had a cheat code. But here we are in this mix. And we didn't know about names like, Benjamin Banneker and Dr. Charles Drew and, some of the black inventors, that come up and done amazing things, Garrett Morris, Morgan, Lewis Latimer, until 1989, when KRS-One dropped, You Must Learn, and rattled off every one of those names and exactly what they contributed to science and technology and the country, right? We weren't learning that in school. And again, I didn't go to like a white school that was trying to hide that information, which, more so now, but so I was like, wow, this is great. You can actually learn. This is a way of not only giving knowledge that we're not getting in schools, but you're actually like remixing the way that knowledge is given, right? So yes, it happens to be, through rap and we're learning about these particular things, but the idea that you could kind of flip the way that knowledge, and then we started seeing it in the music much more, obviously the 80s, the golden era. We could have longer talks about how that isn't what the industry, what the industry has devolved into. But the point is, I was sort of like a lot of folks our age, or a lot of folks who came up loving hip hop. We don't think any of this exists anymore. We don't think anyone's doing this anymore. We don't think people are making music like this anymore. We don't think that there's any substance or any hope. And I start saying, well, listen, it may not be on the radio, but what these guys are doing, guys, gals, folks, is super, super important. I talked to, so now some in the book. So Bettina Love came down and was teaching elementary school here in Atlanta and was bringing her complete hip-hop self into the classroom. And she started realizing how much more you can get engagement from children, from young, our young students, how much more engaged they're gonna be, how their grades are gonna go up, they're gonna like coming to school, it's gonna change everything. She had a whole great TED talk about, of course they are. Hip-hop, you just let them be hip-hop, they have all the things you want kids to have. Grit, resilience, social and emotional learning. She calls these terms out. The teachers we like our kids to have social and emotional learning skills, so we're gonna learn what? Patty cake? No, just the cipher. The cipher is a social and emotional learning tool. We have it already. Let the kids do it, let the teachers teach it. Now she's writing books on school abolition, because reform isn't working, right? So another, but she's the foundation of the book. And if you watch it, if you do nothing else, if you remember nothing else I said today, at least watch her TED Talk from 20, who knows when. Laid the foundation and the framework and the bar of everyone I wanted to talk to afterwards. Just set that bar, ooh, this is, and she's fierce, if you know who she is and what she does. Then I interviewed folks and I'm not gonna go through them all, we're only here for a little bit. I wanna, see if you have any questions or whatever, blah, blah, blah. But I just want to shout out a couple folks in the book. Dr. Ian Levy is you mentioned Elliot Gann. Someone that mentioned Elliot Gann. Though he's been interviewed, he's not in the book. But Ian Levy was the one who made the connection to me that not only can you help kids in school, but you can help kids in school with their mental health. And Dr. Levy is the 2016 New York State School Counselor of the Year. And white dude, actually raps, he spits too. He's been doing rap for a long time. But he's a traditionally trained school counselor. Said, I'm going to learn how to, deal with kids and da-da-da, and get them, keep their heads straight, while they're in school, high school. And he was somewhere in the city, somewhere in New York, rough and tumble and all that jazz. But he starts, talking to the kids, about, how they rap, he raps, and they're like, you don't rap, Dr. Levy. He's like, yeah, I rap too, okay. And you have, a little rapport, you have a little, way to connect to them. And he says, what if I start, when they have an issue, when we grew up, it was you have to write a poem about how you feel, right? I don't know if you just write poems. I don't like writing poems. But you ask a kid to write a rap about how they feel, they might do it today, because everybody fancy themselves an amateur rapper these days, right? Which is what the law that tries to get everyone lyrics and evidence loves. But anyway, side note. So he says, look, I go to school, hey, can I do a thing where we have a little recording studio, just a little setup this big, and we'll play some, and I use it to get the kids, and they're like, you could do it after school, but you're not gonna do it during hours. He was like, all right, fine, after school. So he would lug equipment on the subway and stuff, have a little microphone stand, and set it up in a closet somewhere, because they weren't giving them, they were like, I don't know, whatever you're gonna do. And he starts doing this to the point where it grows to like a full-fledged program, to the point where over the course of a year, he and these kids are making mixtapes specifically about addressing their trauma, bringing them in as a counselor, as a therapist, but let's make these songs. At the time, he said, I think when we were talking, it was like right after Michael Ferguson was killed, and so a lot of police brutality stuff was on, Freddie Gray and, Eric Garner and all that stuff. So that was on the mind of the young kids in the neighborhoods there. And he said, yo, let's song about it. Let's do songs about it. We do a whole mixtape. It was called Hoodies Up. They did the artwork. They did the music production, the whole thing. And all these kids like, oh, man, you really helped me get through this. He tells a story about one young man who wanted his cousin had been killed, and he came and sought him out. Wasn't even in this little program. Came and sought him out and says, my cousin just passed. I hear you the guy I can come to and do music about it in the school. He's like, yeah, come through. He does a song with him. He says, listen, my sister, can she come in? Can she sing on the hook? He was like, yeah, bring her in. Bring her in after school. Let's go. They recorded the thing. They played it at the memorial. Like, it was a whole thing. And then he goes, so we've been doing this for years now. He says the next year, kids are recommending the next level of kids to come and kick it with me here in the studio. And I talk about these to folks like this. There's a lot of folks who are doing, Dr. Raphael Travis, shouts to J.C. Hall. There's a lot of people doing this. Is just, like I said, you can now go down to, if you're like, oh, that's dope, I need to learn more about that, I'll give you 10 more names. One of the things that some of the, I'm one of some of the OGs, we make this joke. We say, when we were young, we used to rap about selling drugs. And now all they rap about is taking drugs. Word, you've heard people say that. I'm not alone. And I get it. The implication there is that, a little rougher, a little harder life. We were out there doing things. We were hustling. We were making money. We were living, da-da-da. And I get it. And it's not that didn't happen, and not that was a good thing. Like, one isn't better than the other. But what I like about the fact that, yeah, sometimes our kids are talking about self-medicating, or they're talking about, issues that we're a little bit more hardened, we might look at as being signs of weakness. I implore folks, especially parents wonder, how can hip-hop give me a better connection with your kids? Well, if your son or daughter is connecting to an artist that's rapping about self-medicating, drowning himself out, facing issues of depression or whatever, I'm not going to take that opportunity to criticize my kid's taste in music. I'm going to ask him, what's up? What's wrong? What's causing this? Maybe I take him to a therapist, right? And I'm learning that from all the people in this book and throughout the people that I've talked to who are doing that sort of thing, making these kind of connections. We always complain that there's this generation gap in hip-hop. They don't respect us. We don't respect them. We don't know how to talk. We don't know how to meet each other in the middle. And I've got a book full of people that are doing it. And so they each give their own little take on it. I talked to Dr. Lauren Kelly. Speaking about the youth, we're youth-focused, I think, when we do a lot of this work, right? So I speak to Dr. Lauren Kelly. She's an amazing professor. She's in Rutgers University. She actually teaches in, the English department. She started a great organization called the Hip Hop Youth Research and Activism Conference. Right? This happens every year in Rutgers. I've been a mentor for several years. So again, if you're here, I'm just not to take anything away from the wonderful Hip Hop Congress. You say, oh my God, I never heard about this Hip Hop Congress. You got stuff happening all over the world. This is great. They're not the only ones. They're great, and they've been doing it, right? But the whole point of this collection of folk is to know that, we're all doing this in different ways. What Minister Server does, what Emil does, what Lauren Kelly does is the Hip Hop Youth Research and Activism Conference. So again, when I hear older folks saying, these young people don't understand hip hop the way we understand it, I'm like, well, you should go to the Hip Hop Youth Research and Activism Conference, where they're having a conference, and their main goal, now mind you, this is run by the young people. So when I say young, I'm saying like early graduate students. They run the conference. They put out the call for papers and presentations. They read them all. They choose they choose the theme. They pick who's gonna perform, or who they're gonna be keynote. They actually do it all. And the themes are activism and research. So we have undergrad students that are going into college with this idea that we can take our hip hop and do it in an academic sense, that how do we now turn that into returning back to our communities with better information and better ways to do all of these things. So the young people are doing it. She created the program, great program, and she told me, this is one lesson, this is like the kind of gems I get from the book, and I'm hoping maybe even if we're doing this work, these gems are valuable. and then I'll take some questions. She was working with high school kids, and she was like, I want to kind of get an understanding of like why some of the things that we don't understand, what they like that we don't understand why they like it. And she says, I'm trying to get an understanding. So I have a little group, little cohort. I think it was 10th, 11th, 12th graders, right? High school. And she's like, all right, let's listen to some music you like, and we'll try to, parse what this is all about. And the kids are like, all right, cool. The song at the time was 2 Chainz's birthday song. Right? That's what I'm telling you. And so she's like, birthday song, that sounds okay, let's play it. And then, of course, y'all know, all I want for my birthday, right? She's like, oh, this song. Okay, but here we are, we're here. She says, okay. And, she's a black woman. She says, as a black woman, I feel really uncomfortable. We watch the song, we listen to the lyrics, we read the lyrics, we watch the video with the sound off. We're looking at the imagery, we're looking at the women dressed scantily clad. You don't see their faces, a lot of just bodies. There's a woman laying on the table, and she's basically cake. There's cake on top of her naked body. It's all of that and more. There's lap dances in the backyard. There's like 7 lap dances happening, but all these women in bikinis. It's that kind of video. It's that kind of thing that some of us will look and be like, I raised you better than this. That's not what we like. This is not what hip hop means to us, right? So she says, all right, tell me what you like about this song. Oh, it's just, it's fun, it's whatever. Okay, but what do you really like? How does this make you feel? Why do you gravitate to this? They said, it's just, it's just, she goes, do you want your life to look like this? They were like, no. I mean, nah. She was like, do you want your birthday party to look like this? They were like, no. She was like, I don't understand. What is it? She goes, the kid said, well, we don't want this. But we wouldn't mind having this if this is what we wanted. Oh, wait a sec. So it's not, she says, what I realized was the thing that we looked at sometimes as them gravitating towards, misogyny, materialism, sex, violence, drug, all the things, it's not that. It's power. It's options. It's having freedom. It's having, if I want to have 7 lap dances at my birthday party, I'd like to be able to afford that. I'd like to have a nice job. I'd like to be, but I don't want that. They said we don't want that, but we just love that it's freedom. It's crazy, but it's freedom. And so I said, wow. So she says that's why she starts literally changing the way she does her education practice to keep this in mind, that they know a lot more than we think they do, or they can express themselves in different ways that we don't expect. But hip-hop, the music, the one thing we have in common with them, even though there's a big gap as to, which side of that spectrum we all sit on, that's the way. That's the way to get in. And so she's proven that with that, and then, again, launched that conference series so that we can keep doing that. I'll give you one more. That's cool? There's so many gems in the book. It's a good book, y'all. These are great because these are just brilliant people, and I just put all their stuff in the book, and I gave it to y'all. But I do try to tie it all together, and the way it's really fun as a DJ and as someone that's done music and such. I sequenced the book. Y'all know what I'm talking about, right? You plan the order of your mixtape, or you plan the order of your album, so that you're telling. They don't do it as much. Well, sometimes they do it still, but now it's such a weird world. You Spotify, you get the 3 songs you like and whatever. But in our day, we would, the albums were meant to be listened to in order. So the book is kind of meant to be read in order so that each kind of thing builds up. A lot of this is education focused. I do talk about race relations. There's some political undertones. I don't want to make it too political. That is where I'm going with this all. But I didn't want to make it wasn't that on purpose. But you'll recognize that the whole thing has an undertone, an underbelly of social justice, politics, and how do we use all of this to go around all of that they're trying to do to us, right? That's to y'all. So that's really what's that's the you can't say put the medicine in wait, you can't say put the medicine in the candy anymore because that's just too, you know what I mean? So, but you know what I'm saying? Put the vegetables in the, I don't know. You can't use that anymore. It's just, you can't say that. These are all early in the book. So this is just like setting the foundation for where we're going with it. There's a guy who works at Google. His name is Richard Ashe. I say Ashe like Ashe. It's Ashe, but whatever. When you work at Google, you get to do like 20% of non-Google work while you're there. They give you the resources and they let you, you can't be a, stripper. You have to like do work, but they'll give you resources, they approve the thing. And so this guy, Richard, who doesn't really have a connection to hip hop culture, and this is maybe not us in this room, but it lets other people know, because a lot of people will probably come up to y'all. We've heard a lot of teachers say, I want to be authentic. I want to do this hip hop teaching thing in a classroom, but I don't, I'm not from there. I don't really do hip hop. How is it? And I actually have a professor, Dr. Andrea Hunt, who's a white lady and teaches in Northern Alabama, the sociology of hip hop at the University of Northern Alabama. And y'all know Northern Alabama, it's right there, Y'all know what it's like. And it's definitely, it's a red district. Most of her class is white. There's a little bit of a mixture there, but it's a vital tool for anyone who doesn't feel like they're part of the culture to how to authentically, because that's the key, authentically and with intention and with purpose. Don't come in here, I'm here now. Don't do that. How you can learn from the community to then teach the others. And what that does is that gives the white kids that don't really have the connection to the culture either a nice little conduit. And so she has a great example in the book. That wasn't the one I was talking about, but that's in there too. Richard's sort of another example of this, where he reached out and got the people he needed to get. And this is a brilliant program, and matter of fact, I want to bring it here. If you have a thing, if you have a community organization, I don't know, I was going to ask, are there teachers in the room? This is a brilliant program you could bring in to your community organization, to your church, to your library, whatever. At Google, he wanted to find a better way to teach kids to do computer programming. So we developed this program. It's called Python MC. It's now called Breakbeat Code. Anyone know computer programming in here? A little bit? All right, so you're going to love this. You might love this. I'm speaking for you in advance. I'm from the future. So he designs this program where he found this thing, and he talked to these people, and he found this thing because he was listening to Black Sheep, this or that, this or that. And one day he was like, that's like an if-then statement. Like he's making these connections. Like, I wonder if we could teach computer coding through rap. And at first he had the idea of like the way they did it in a fresh prep. Just put all the things you need to learn in a rap song, and then you learn the rap song, and then you learn the things. But coding is hands-on, and it's like you don't really learn from but reading a book and then applying it. You learn by doing it, in real time. So we talked to these folks from Rapport Studios, Chen Lo, Soul Science Lab. Y'all might know Chen, and I forget his partner at the time. And he was like, hey, y'all do like culturally relevant pedagogy, right? Y'all know what that is. That's when you take your curriculum, as y'all have done, and develop it to be relevant culturally to the students you're teaching. By the way, Dr. Gloria Ladson Billings, the one who coined the phrase in 1985, blessed to have her in this book. So the OG, as they call her, of culturally relevant pedagogy. Point is, he went to these folks. He's like, how do I do this? And they were like, well, let's do this. And through that, they found this online program called EarSketch. And I think EarSketch is out of Georgia Tech. So yay, right? Boom. EarSketch allows you to do, it's basically like an online DAW, right? On digital, digital music programming kind of, yeah. So what you could do is you could access that. There's a repository of beats and loops and, things that you can now bring in and stack and, show like Pro Tools, you're making this thing, right? So he develops a way to have young kids do that. But you can't drag and drop. You got to do it by programming. So here's a repository of music. Here's a 14, 15, 16-year-old kid who's never touched a computer like that, never thought about computer programming as a thing, just, turns on the app, doesn't know that you can even, who's teaching that kind of stuff in a lot of these schools? I've seen it in 4 hours. They go from zero, and then what they're doing is they're building beats. So they teach you, hey, this is the programming code, this is the coding language. You got to go here, tell it which repository, which loop, where to put it, bar 1, how far it should go, 4 bars, 8 bars, okay, does the next one come in at bar 4? Cool, you have to program that, no dragging and dropping, you got to learn how to do it. Once you do that, can we do a fade out? They say, hey, can we do a fade out? Yeah, here's how you do a fade out, but here's the programming language that makes you do the fade out. In 4 hours, these kids know how to program. They have the basics of programming. And inevitably, at the end, they're like, when's the next one? When can I do more? So kids that have never, ever, ever even thought about this as a career path or just a way to, and it's just another way to, like, computer programming, if you know it, is problem solving. You're trying to solve problems. So you're not just learning how to make beats. You're learning, and to program, you're learning problem solving. Oh, the transferable life skills that hip hop gives us. Where was I? I'm doing a TED Talk in September. Thank you. But I haven't done it yet, so don't give me anything. It's scary, y'all. You got to go to all these meetings and coaching and get it all right. So I'm at the first one yesterday. It was at Modex over there in Buckhead. Beautiful little space, right? And it's going to be TEDx Buckhead Ave, and I'll be talking about stuff like this. So yes. And I'm there, and they were talking about, one of the coaches is like an actor, so we're doing like vocal warm-ups and all that stuff, and another one's like an improv person, so they're teaching us how to be on stage. And some of us, I've been on stage, I'm comfortable here. But some tidbits, and they said something about hip-hop, and they were saying something, I forget what it was, and I said, well, I always say this, I always say, every aspiring rapper, I don't want to say failed rapper, because I'm one of them, I rapped for a while. Every aspiring rapper, by default, is a better communicator, right? We just learn how to put words together, like Letterman, right? We know how to do those things, and it just feels better. And they were talking about cadence on stage when you're giving a speech. So, well, and they're like, they have to teach people that. They have to teach people when to pause. They need to teach people when to double it up and triple it up and keep on. We learn that trying to rap. We learn that listening to rap. So we have a leg up on anybody that's trying to hit that stage for the first time. As rappers, listen, no disrespect to any other music genre, but you don't have all those cadences and all those musical genres. You learn that from rap, so you're a better communicator. Now, is someone going to connect those dots for you? That's the question. Like, someone's going to say, put it in your speech, do your talk, when you write your thing, when you, do a proposal, when you do a PowerPoint. Like, yeah, hell yeah, funk it up a little bit. Like, bring it in. Obviously, we can't always do that. Obviously, someone before, Anita was saying, like, I couldn't do this in my day job. Day job's not letting you bring in all that hip-hop flair. But I think the point of this book, the point of my work, the point of why, I'm speaking to y'all, but I love speaking to not y'all. You know what I mean? I love speaking to people who don't know all the brilliance and ingenuity that y'all have, and be like, y'all need to know about y'all. And not from an extractory sense, not come in and take from this community, but invite and involve and be with and partner. Because then we could see all these innovations that I'm just touching on. I mean, I've a whole 300 pages of them, and then 3,000 pages more. I should do a volume 2. No, I ain't writing a book ever again. This is a pain in the. I probably will. Emil knows. Emil's wrote 78 books. He's like, whatever, bro, get over it. I'm like, come on, man. And this was like interviews. He's like, how hard could it be, bro? Like, you just took other people's work. It's harder than that. Like, I thought it was going to be, how hard could it be? It's just interviews. It'll be fun. No, forget it. Point is, the work we're doing here is invaluable. It's invaluable. There are people doing it. Get the book, don't get the book. Listen to the podcast. You can kind of hear all this for free. But, I did package it nicely. Gave my 2 cents about it, because I have some gems, too. Just by being sort of holistically looking at all, like the expert of experts, I guess, like humbly, respectfully, but like, I know what he's doing, I know what she's doing, they kind of do the same thing, but here's where they're different, and here's where, like, you can get this beautiful, tapestry of it all. Anyway, point is that this work is invaluable. It is, I joke, this was supposed to be out like a year ago, and I said, it's actually not a bad time to have a book talking about saving America now, because, if everything was fine, I wouldn't have anything to talk about. And everything is not fine. And so there are some real inspirations, I think, from these folks, from these innovations, that even if you're doing the work already and you have your own, and you're overdue to talk to me for the show, and please keep nudging me now that this is done. Let's get back to adding to those numbers. But that you're not alone, that this isn't just like, well, yeah. That's all I got. Y'all know what I'm talking about. I'd love to answer. I got a little bit of time, a few minutes maybe. Take a couple questions if anyone got them. Yes. Social media. Well, okay. First of all, I didn't have a thing, but thank you for that. I'm Manny Faces official on IG and most things. So my name is Manny Faces. It's MANNY Faces. No, that's not my real name. My real name is Bobby Elbows. No, I'm just playing. That's so stupid. This is a dumb joke. Thank you for laughing. I get nervous every time I do that. So I'm there. MannyFaces.com is where I live, and everything can be jumped off from there, including the book. What I really want to just point to, last thing I'll say before any more questions, is that I've also built a little bit of a media ecosystem. So when I say I've done hip-hop podcasting for a long time, I actually produce other people's podcasts. We have a great one called Newsbeat, where we actually do social justice journalism. We interview experts and activists and people facing injustice, all the injustices, you know them all. We've been doing it for a long time. It's actually where we met Cornel West, because we interviewed him for the podcast. And we interview them. I do sort of the music sound design. We put a little mood music to it. It's like a documentary. And then we break up the interviews, the full episodes, by inviting independent hip-hop artists to come and drop 316s over the course of the podcast. So they're punctuating and amplifying the first part, what we just went over, and then the beat drops. And then they come in and they kick it. And because hip-hop, rap artists are journalists. They're absolutely capable of being documentarians and journalists. We have won awards for that podcast. We beat, it was a New York Press Club, which is a big industry organization, all the New York outlets, for Journalism Podcast of the Year, which means we beat, I don't know if you heard of them, the New York Times. You ever hear about them? The New York Times, Bloomberg, we beat all of them twice. So it's really dope, and it's a nice way that we can. And matter of fact, they're in the book. We're in the book because, to me, using hip hop as journalism, intentionally, not just we rap about what we see, that kind of thing, but merging it with journalism in a really authentic and creative way. We like to say it's like Democracy Now! And Black Thought had a podcast, baby. So we did that, and so that's in there. Aside from that, and I want everyone to be comfortable coming to the Hip Hop Can Save America media ecosystem. So when I say media ecosystem, it is a podcast. I do a live stream every Monday on YouTube. Not every Monday, a lot of Mondays. I try to be every Monday, but life. But we're there. I'm usually there. I got a ton of videos. The interviews are now all on both audio and video. We do a live stream Monday nights. But most importantly, I have a newsletter. I've got a great newsletter. It goes out probably almost 2,000 people now, and it's y'all. If you're here, you should be on that. And what I try to do is I try to curate story. Again, I'm really not telling you my opinions all day. I'm telling you their work and their opinions. So I do the same thing. I curate stories because we don't get to hear these stories. We don't get to hear people using hip hop in these ways in the mainstream media. We unfortunately don't see it in our hip hop media, and nearly at all anymore either. So when I find them and I painstakingly hand curate them and I wrap them up in a bow with love and I put them in this newsletter, you get these stories that are out there, again, that places you can connect to or just get inspired by. I like to say it's hip-hop news that isn't about dumb-ish. So I curate those and collect those. I also have a listing of all of the conferences like this one. So like I say, Hip Hop Youth Research and Activism Conference, when Hip Hop Congress is doing their thing. I was just at the Hip Hop Ed Conference at Columbia University. A lot of them are academic. Some of them are cultural gatherings. The Selma Jubilee was on my list. No one's given you that list of events throughout the country that are specifically focused on, like Rahman said, the trifecta of arts, hip hop, social justice, and and doing these things. So I that's part of what I do. So the newsletters for y'all. We have a Discord server that we have these conversations that are ongoing, and more people are coming in. I just had a great. Y'all know Culture Fix, the organization Culture Fix, Nora and them. We just had a great back and forth on our Discord. We're bringing people over to their Discord. So it's very much of, we're trying to just be not the hub, but a hub that has all of this information that everyone can kind of gravitate around. So that's hiphopcansaveamerica.com. Everything is out there. The book, the show, the podcast. If you are a listener and you don't want to watch, all the links are there, and then it links back to me too. So really, me, but more than me, us, and that's the platforms that I've built over the past few years. what did I say, newsletter, live stream, podcast, Discord, subreddit, we have a subreddit, and now book, and then TED Talk, but that's later. And now talk at Hip Hop Congress, which was dope. Any more questions? My man. Yes. Yeah. So every field would be nice. So it's actually, when I talk to people who are not familiar with the culture, I'd be like, oh, you know, there's hip hop architecture. You know the hip hop architecture camp, right? Michael Ford in Detroit. Oh, there's a guy that does hip hop and forestry. What? Yes, there's a connection between, there's hip hop and urban farming, there's hip hop, right? So I personally want to know about it all because that's kind of, my role. And then more of the ones that are, I think, the most mature intersections, because it's been going on for a long time. Education, technology has a lot of great ones. Like I say, I do a whole keynote about technology and hip hop, and people who are doing stuff there. Mental health is super important. I've had about 5 or 6 folks that do mental health therapy, including for adults, by the way. A lot of this was youth-centric, but James Norris was on my show out in LA, by the way, out on the left coast. And they do basically hip-hop integrated mental health counseling for grown-ups, like for us. So you can't deal with your kids' trauma if we haven't dealt with our trauma. And the problem with, outdated Eurocentric, counselings, methodologies is that they don't work on people who aren't outdated and Eurocentric. So these are things that we know work, and they're developing those programs. So to that point, just kind of more of the same, but also everything. If there were any kind of fields that I'd like to see, okay, I'm going to take your question and replace it with my own. And I'm going to say, I'd like to find ways to now take, if we're doing it in the education space, the key is not to keep it in the education space. As you know, the key is to now to be able to replicate it outside of the education space, because they're going to shut it down in the education spaces. Now, can we infiltrate the education spaces and make it so that they can't, and maybe in a few years things will change, whatever, fine. But the key is to take the lessons that we're learning for these innovations and do apply them kind of everywhere. Eventually, obviously, public policy, governmental affairs, how municipalities are run. I want a person that does hip-hop, as Gloria Latson-Billings said in this book, in the interview with her, she goes, we don't want teachers, but I'll replace this with anyone. We don't want anyone to do hip-hop. We want them to be hip-hop. So when you put someone in power or in a position of authority in the school board, not to just do hip-hop as a gimmick, because we know we face a lot of that, someone that really understands that this is something that needs to change the system. So it's about systems change at the end of the day now. So whatever field can help move that along, I'd like to see us make sure that that's happening. So I think that's happening in these individual fields and disciplines, but now the goal is to take that and really kind of do it on a system-wide, basis. That make sense? Am I done? All right.
Any last comments?
Me? Nah, man, what an honor to be here with y'all today. Be here for the rest of the weekend, hanging out with y'all. Shouts to Dr. Kelly Glow. Dr. Kelly Glow. Shouts to everyone here. We've done a couple things together now, and I'd love to keep working with y'all and really giving me this time. I appreciate y'all. I appreciate y'all. Thank you.
All right, everyone.
hiphopsaveamerica.com/book, and you get the book. You don't get it from me. I do a signed copy. There's a signed copy link if you actually want the book, which I hope you do. But if you don't, it's fine. We'll still be friends.
I want to thank everyone for coming out for the first day. I hope you had a good time. Hope you enjoyed yourself. Hope it was informative. Remember, Minister Server always reminds us, rap is something you do, but hip-hop is how you live, and we're living it today just by being here. So I appreciate that. And I would love for you all to come on up stage and let's do one big happy family photo. If you don't mind being photographed, y'all come on up. She's going to turn the lights up.